Baker Mayfield is coming off a 2-touchdown game against that miserable Tampa Bay defense. He's averaging not quite 260 passing yards per week, isn't yet completing 60% of his throws. It's been a bit up and down, but he gets a great matchup this week again against Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh on the season is allowing the 4th most fantasy points per game to the quarterback position. They've already given up 15 passing scores on the year. So I do think Mayfield is going to give us another multi-touchdown game in this one. Put me down for 268 passing yards here, 2 scores, 1 interception. Ben Roethlisberger is at home this week where we like him. He's coming off a bye and he's facing the Cleveland Browns. This seems like a pretty good fantasy setup. Of course, he did throw 3 interceptions against Cleveland in the opener. That is, I suppose, a small concern. But again, Ben at home is all kinds of fantasy goodness. He hasn't been below 250 passing yards in any game so far this season. Now, the Browns defense has been pretty frisky against the pass. They've only allowed 7 yards per attempt on the season. They've actually intercepted more balls than they have allowed touchdown passes. These are good things, but still, Ben at home, healthy receivers, it's a great setup. You're going to want to play him. I'm going to give him 337 passing yards here, 3 touchdowns, 1 pick.
Jarvis Landry is what we call a targets hog. He is feeding from the trough early and often, becoming the apple of Baker Mayfield's eye alongside David NJOKU, a borderline wide receiver 2 on the season. He's averaged 11.7 targets per game, netting 5.9 receptions, 69.9 yards, and 2 total touchdowns. Now you look at Pittsburgh, the Steelers have allowed the 3rd most fantasy points to the wide receiver position, surrendering 10 total touchdowns and 14.5 yards per catch, 2 WRs. Landry goes for his customary 6 catches, 65 yards, but doesn't find the end zone. Antonio Brown has caused nightmares the Cleveland Browns in his illustrious NFL career, and I think he will not deviate from that this week. Now, you look at Cleveland, the Browns have allowed the 9th most fantasy points to the wide receiver position, giving up 102 receptions to WRs in 7 games. Yeah, Cleveland's allowed just 7 yards per attempt and a 56.4 catch percentage to wideouts, but Brown, who was wide receiver 5, averaging 6.7 receptions, 79.7 yards per game, and 6 total touchdowns. I think he crosses the century mark. He goes for 8 catches, 112 yards, and a touchdown. Good juju has certainly been in order this season as SMITH-SCHUSTER ranks wide receiver 15 in terms of fantasy points per game, seeing a robust 10.1 targets per contest. And I tell you what, I think he's easily going to be a top 10 fantasy wide receiver here in week number 8. Why? When you look at the matchup, he gets the Cleveland Browns, allow the 9th most fantasy points, 102 receptions in 7 games to the wide receiver position. They've also surrendered 7 touchdowns to WR. SMITH-SCHUSTER tallies 5 catches, 86 yards, and a touchdown.
It took a minute for Nick Chubb to find a rhythm, but by the game's second half, he was able to take advantage of the holes in Tampa Bay's banged-up defense. Rushing for 80 yards on 18 attempts and a score, the rookie posted top 16 fantasy numbers in his first start of the season. Without much expected work in the passing game, he'll remain an RB2 for fantasy purposes as he takes on the Steelers in Week 8. I'm fearlessly forecasting 81 rushing yards on 20 carries. Le'Veon Bell has yet to report, and no one can be sure when that's going to happen, though the updated rumors suggest Week 9. That means that James Conner will continue to feast for at least another week. Over his past 2 outings, Conner has produced 314 scrimmage yards and 4 total scores. Heading into Week 8 with fresh legs, the second-year running back will take on a Brown squad that's allowing the 9th most fantasy points to the position. I'm fearlessly forecasting 145 total yards and 2 scores.
After a slow start, David NJOKU has really started to get it rolling. He has target totals of 7, 11, 12, and 6 since Baker Mayfield took over as a starter. He's cleared 50 yards in all 4 of those games and scored twice. NJOKU ranks 2nd in the NFL among tight ends in routes run this season, trailing only Zach Ertz, and consistently plays over 80% of the snaps. Every number you want to look at, it's there for this breakout young tight end. Here in Week 8, he'll get the Steelers in what should be a high-scoring game in Pittsburgh. I'm fearlessly forecasting 6 catches for 85 yards.